Good morning and welcome to today's edition of Talk Around Town. I'm Mark Despotakis, your host. Today we're talking with Barksdale from the Northwestern Pennsylvania Rural AIDS Alliance. Barksdale, thank you for joining us today.
Oh, I'm glad to be here, Mark.
First of all, maybe if you could tell us what the Northwestern PA Rural AIDS Alliance is.
Well, the Northwest Pennsylvania Rural AIDS Alliance, we provide services for 13 counties within Northwest Pennsylvania. We have several services. They fall under one umbrella, that agency. But we provide case management. Case management if someone is HIV positive, that they can come and we assign them to a case manager. We have 4 within the agency. We have an office in Clarion and one in Erie. We also have a rural health clinic. The rural health clinic is staffed by a nurse, and she works with several doctors who have specialty in working with HIV and AIDS patients. The rural health clinic meets at 4 or more sites within the 13-county region, for example, in Clarion, Sharon, Erie, so that it's close and so it won't be a far distance for the patients to travel. And then I'm part of the prevention and education team. We travel around to schools, correctional facilities, women's shelters, you name it, sharing information about the prevention of HIV.
Okay, back to case management a little bit. How exactly does that work? If someone comes to you and is HIV positive, they're assigned to a case manager. What exactly goes on there with the case manager then?
Well, the case manager does an intake if someone comes in, and the case managers, they cover certain areas. What the case manager does, they can sign someone up so that they can go to the clinic. And at the clinic, and we tried to have it so that they would go at least 2 times a year, and they would see the physician and the nurse. When someone's HIV positive, we speak of their viral load, and the viral load is pretty much how many particles of the HIV positive they would have per milliliter. So when we speak of that, and we also talk about CD4 count, which is really, it's part of our immune system. It's CD stands for cluster differentiation. But these help in our body, the immune system, and it relates to antibodies. Well, a healthy person would have about 1,200 CD4 count, but when the CD4 count falls below 200, that's a clinical diagnosis of someone having AIDS. So with them having that, so what we do, the case managers work with someone who comes in so that they can see a physician, and then we also have some services where we could help someone, let's say they fall in a crunch with housing, or let's say if their utilities, they're getting ready to get terminated, because the disease really eats away at someone's strength, their vitality, and it reaches a place where someone's not able to maintain a regular job. And so we try to work with that, to provide them with the assistance, and also give them to referrals to agencies that can help them.
Okay. In the realm of patient care, is the patient care you offer for AIDS only, or do you offer other health services through these doctors and nurses?
Well, what we do, our primary focus is, I say, HIV, being HIV positive, and AIDS, because you're first HIV positive. Then later on you can be classified as AIDS. So that's what we focus upon, yes.
Okay. And it's all free of charge?
Yes.
Okay. Even your assistance in housing, placement, and things like that, that's all paid for by the agency?
Well, actually, it's paid for through Ryan White funding, which is provided by the federal government, and through funds from the state.
Okay.
So,
Right.
yes.
Right. Okay. How big of an operation is it? If you can recap, where are your locations at?
Okay. We're located at Clarion and in Erie, and our staff, it's relatively small, approximately 10.
Okay. Where are you located in the Clarion area?
We're located right near Clarion University because we're affiliated with Clarion University.
Okay. All right. Maybe we'll give out the specifics, maybe a phone number later
Okay.
in the show. What about treatment avenues? How is, I don't know a whole lot about HIV and AIDS, but from what I understand, the treatment avenues always seem to be changing. How, you're saying you're a small operation. How difficult do you find it to keep up then with the changing avenues of the treatment within your operation? Is it difficult for you?
Well, actually, we're very fortunate because there are some physicians who are specialists in the Pittsburgh area that we work with, and
Okay.
they provide us with updates. And we have a talented nurse, and she's constantly attending workshops, and she disseminates the information to the staff. And then the Center for Disease Control has a website, and we receive daily updates from them. But you're correct, there's a lot to read and a lot to stay abreast of because the treatment regimen has changed, but yet there's been some continuity in it.
Right. Okay, you say you're coming to us from the education department.
Yes.
So where do you go out and speak?
Well, I go to women's shelters, correctional facilities. I go to recovery, people who are recovery programs for drugs, schools. You can go to elementary schools and high
Really?
schools.
How does that go over in elementary and high schools? Because I know I've heard that at times that there's been parents, around the country, not necessarily in this area, but parents have been sort of split on the issue of their child being taught about HIV and AIDS because they're in elementary school. Some parents have been said, yeah, that's a great idea, while others have said, no, that's a bad idea. What have you found? Has it been positive reaction generally?
Yes, recently was at an elementary school in the Du Bois area and received a positive response. Yeah. What we were focusing upon, the blood, for example, and how blood can be contaminated with HIV, because our curriculum is age appropriate. So there's different topics like pertaining to human sexuality that we're not discussing when we go to elementary school. But we want the children to be aware, for example, in kindergarten, I talk with them about the blood and just the latex gloves, and the idea of a germ is presented to them. And as we move up, we also talk about the blood, and when we get to maybe 5th grade, we're also talking about IV drugs and how that can transmit the disease. If someone has HIV or they're HIV positive and they're IV drug user and they're shooting up. So we do try to keep it age appropriate. And normally what we do, we will let the principal and the parents review the materials to make sure that they feel comfortable with it, or the PTA to see it.
Okay. How did you get involved with the center and especially in the education department of it?
Well, I became involved. I had lived in Washington, D.C., and I worked with Howard University, Health Sciences Library there. And so I was very much interested in health. And my mother earlier had an experience, with breast cancer, and she consequently died from that. So I was very interested in this because of the stigma for so long attached to cancer or with tuberculosis, and what has happened with HIV and AIDS, because it's so important to inform the public about the disease. And that's why we want to start at an early age so that people will be informed rather than have a panic.
Right. Okay. Well, interesting topic. We're going to take a break, come back and talk a little bit more out of the on this after this on Talk Around Town.
WCUC, your home for today's best music.
Same resolution, get the money. Ain't where we been, it's where we gon' be. Get ready to hum on time, cause the person that know the words is hard to find.
Today's best music. Today's best music.
Keep me hanging around this town. I've been falling around this old town too long.
Today's best music, 91.7 WCUC.
Imagine if your bank account automatically put money aside for your future. Hey, thanks. With the new Easy Saver plan for U.S. savings bonds, saving money is that easy. You can purchase Double E savings bonds or the new inflation-indexed I-bond automatically from your checking or savings account month after month. To enroll, call toll-free 1-877-811-SAVE. The new U.S. Savings Bonds Easy Saver Plan. It's as easy as it gets.
You may not have the potential to make the Pro Bowling Association, but why not practice? Listen every Tuesday for your chance to win 2 free games to the Clarion Bowl Arena, brought to you by the station that gives back to its listeners, WCUC.
All right, and we are back here on Talk Around Town. I'm Mark Despotakis. We're talking with Barksdale, from the Northwestern Pennsylvania Rural AIDS Alliance. I have a whole bunch of notes here. I had to find it. We were talking a little bit about what the services you offer. Let's say, take us through sort of the generic. If a patient comes in, take us through the steps that you do with that patient who maybe comes to you who says, I'm HIV positive, I need some help. What can you do for me?
Okay. Well, we begin with assigning them a case manager, and the case manager works closely with them, making sure, because, see, when someone starts on a drug regimen, there are certain times during the day when they have to take their drugs, and you can't take it, let's say, 8 hours later. It's very important that you take these drugs on time. And the case managers work in conjunction with the physicians and the pharmacists to make sure that the clients, the consumers, are taking their drug regimen. And then they're also making sure that the consumers would have the best quality of life possible. And so they're listening to issues, sometimes bridging from housing to transportation. And sometimes they're there with a compassionate ear. And they're also making sure that the consumers, if there's another agency that perhaps could help them, they would provide them with referrals. And then there's the rural health clinic. So the person who arrives would be scheduled for an appointment with the rural health clinic so that they can be treated. And one thing I want to say about the rural health clinic is that the nurses and specialists there, they're also trying to work with the family physician because the person would still be seeing their family physician. And sometimes, let's say, in between going to the clinic, the family physician, the consumer might go in and see the family physician, and there's some concern. Well, they can call our nurse, and our nurse will do the research or contact the specialists in Pittsburgh so that they can get the most up-to-date information to the family physician.
Right. You spoke a little bit about drugs there. I think maybe it's a misnomer that people think that HIV and AIDS is this incurable disease. Are there drugs out there that are able to help people? I mean, there's not a cure. Am I correct in that?
No, there is not a cure. This past December 1st, we commemorated or celebrated World AIDS Day. And the theme was to AIDS in the silence. But it underscored that in the age group from 25 to 44, that AIDS is actually the second leading cause of death. So it's still a potent force within the community. We have made some progress through these drug treatments where people are living longer, yet many people are still dying from it.
Well, does it affect certain people differently? Because I've heard stories maybe that someone has AIDS and they lived, X amount of time, and another person may have had AIDS and lived, a much longer life. Is that often the case, that you'll find two people with the same disease, some who are living longer than others? Or am I just, maybe hearing that from wrong sources?
Well, this is my disclaimer. I'm not a physician or nurse. Yet, in my experience, I have seen people who are HIV positive, and some do live longer than others.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. It's. I think we a lot of times mix up HIV positive and AIDS. What's the borderline there? I realize HIV positive would come before AIDS, but what makes it go into AIDS? Is it just something that happens, inside your bodies, or is it something over time, or something that hasn't been treated with drugs? What's sort of the borderline there that makes that happen?
Well, that's a very relevant question, because within, I believe it's the Centers for Disease Control, that there's a definition of AIDS. And one criteria was that when your CD4 cell count falls beneath 200, that was a diagnosis of having AIDS. But then there was also another one. You could have more CD4 cells. I believe it was approximately 400 or so, in combination with certain opportunistic infections.
I see.
Yes.
Okay. Do you offer, you were saying about the center offers housing, do you offer maybe temporary housing for someone who's, AIDS has affected their life in such a negative way, or the HIV positive, that they're no longer to maintain residence in their own house or take care of themselves, but yet they live alone? Do you offer any housing, or do you just offer the assistance to find a housing?
Well, we do not provide housing, but we would be able to work with, let's say, the landlord, and we could provide like some type of voucher under certain situations.
I see. In the brochure that I got, the first thing that I noticed was the Clarion University logo on here. I didn't realize that this was affiliated with the university. Is it always been? And well, first of all, how long has the alliance been in existence?
It's approximately 7-8 years now.
Okay, and it's done with the university. How does that partnership work out? How does that help your goal, and how does your goal help the university goal?
Well, it works very well because during the period when there was the need seen, that within our 13-county region, we actually needed some institution who would provide leadership and a certain degree of expertise. And this is where Clarion University stepped forward.
Okay.
And so it provided the leadership. So what happens is that I think it's almost collaborative, where the university and the Small Business Development Center works with the Alliance. And I think the Alliance has benefited greatly from that.
Right.
And then I think that Clarion University benefits because it's really a community service. And Clarion University is known as a teacher school, too. So I think that both have benefited, and we really have benefit from the relationship.
Okay, quickly running out of time here, but maybe if you could tell us how someone can get in touch with you, with the organization, if they want to come for assistance, maybe in the Clarion area if they'd like assistance.
Okay, well, they could call 764-6066, and that would put them in contact with our agency.
Okay. Barksdale from the Northwestern Pennsylvania Rural AIDS Alliance, thank you for joining us. Learned a lot from this today. Thanks a lot.
You're more than welcome.
We'll be back right after this.
Research shows that people want more interaction with the animals at the Pittsburgh Zoo. So we've invited noted primate specialist Dr. Claude Bramblett.
Hello, Dave.
To talk about communicating with the gorillas. So, Doctor, what's a typical gorilla communication? Are you okay?
That's a gorilla communication, Dave. You try it.
Me? No.
Come on. Not bad, not bad.
Really?
Now,
What was I communicating?
back off, Buster. That's my banana.
Wow, back off.
It's a rough translation, of
I
course.
don't want to pick a fight with a gorilla.
Good point. Say there's a poacher hiding in the bush.
Poacher hiding in the bush.
And you want to warn the other
I
gorillas.
want to warn the others. I'm with you.
You go, rah, rah. Your turn.
Okay. Blah.
Remember that poacher, Dave.
Ha!
The gorillas are counting on you, Dave.
The Pittsburgh Zoo. Show off your communication skills with one of the largest gorilla families in the country.
Woo! I don't know. I have this strange urge to scratch my...
Oh, no. That would invite an attack.
Oh.
You get to the top, get hooked in, and then you look over the edge. I was like, no way am I jumping off this tower. I'm staying right here. I'm like, am I ever going to be good enough to be a Marine? When it was all said and done, watching the color guard raise the American flag, I thought, I am a United States Marine.
PFC Keith Polk approved. He could be one of us. Can you? Call 1-800-MARINES.
91.7 WCUC, your home for today's best music.
Somewhere when the sun begins to shine, I hear a song from another time and fade away.
Today's best music.
A little bit of Mary all night long, a little bit of Jessica, here I am, a little bit of you makes me your man.
Today's best music.
'Cause she's so high above me. She's so lovely. She's so high.
Today's best music. 91.7 WCUC.
WCUC.
All right, and we are back on Talk Around Town. I want to thank again Barksdale from the Northwestern Pennsylvania Rural AIDS Alliance. Certainly a lot we learned from that. Next week on this very program, we are going to have Carol George from the Clarion Hospital talking about weight loss, New Year's resolutions. Everyone said they're going to lose weight. We'll give you some advice if you're still holding on to that resolution. And also, you can join me next week on my TV show on Feedback, exclusively in the Clarion area on TV5, starting Tuesday night at 7:30, and it'll also be on Wednesday night at 7:30. That's it for today. I'm Mark Despotakis. We'll see you next week on Talk Around Town. For my producer, Mike Scott, I'm Mark Despotakis. Have a nice week.